Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and anybody out there listening. This is me, Tony Browne from the Limerick Historical Society, talking again to you for another hour or so on Lir Media TV. Put the search into Lir Media, and you'll find these programs on into the Limerick Historical Society site, and you'll find them as well. And of course, we're always looking for members in the Limerick Historical Society. But as everybody knows, there's nothing going on at the moment. And do I miss all the lectures in various places around the city and the county? But nothing we can do. We all kind of live in hope anyway. So as usual tonight, I have with me Tom Donovan. First of all, Tom, you're welcome to the program anyway.
Thank you, Tony.
And tonight I have Ger Madden. Ger, you're welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tony.
Now, Ger Madden is from Mount Shannon, and we're going to talk tonight about Lochderg and mainly all points, well, mainly to the west of Lochderg, from, I suppose, really from Tumgraney up as far as where we won't kind of go to Woodford. We'll go fairly close to it. Ger, first of all, you're involved in local history for a long, long time.
Oh, I think top 5 years now, I think.
Yeah.
That's
Actually, talking of that now, I remember myself and Tom Donovan one time. We went out to a house looking to take a slide up in Drew's Court a few years ago. And the owner of the thing said, there was a fella here, she says, and he's doing a book. I said, oh, surely I should have had somebody. She couldn't think of the name, who it was anyway. That was here inquiring about the Drews, but I found out afterwards to you, because of the connection, which we'll talk about in a minute, with the Drews up in Scariff from Drew's Court. And I should tell people, Drew's Court is roughly out there. It's south of Drumcolliher. We're actually nearly we're on the banks of the Meg as you go into County Cork. But tonight we're moving up, as I said, up to the top of Lochderg. Jerry, you've done a fair amount of books over the years.
I think I have 15 at the moment, I think, done.
God.
Plus the 18 journals, the Slivakti journal we do every 2 years.
Slivakti, yeah. Where and what is Slivakti?
So it is a huge mountain range, 220 square miles, stretching from Woodford to Gort to Tulla, back to Scariff, Tumgraney, Whitegate, Mount Shannon. Huge area.
Yeah, because I know
because there's no pines, there's only a few places over 1,000 feet really. It should be a range of hills rather than mountain. But it is one of the largest ranges in Ireland.
Yeah, because what's his name spoke about that now, the launch of your last book. Outside when I was there, out in Scariff, Kevin Jones.
Yes, he was born in
he was on about it. I remember him talking about the Slivaktis. You know, you're familiar, Tom, with the Slivaktis anyway.
I have them. Wonderful. You know, I think the real history of Ireland is written in local history journals, you know, and I gather a lot of them, you know, from Mallow right up Charleville, you know, or Ted O'Riordan did the Charleville one, and like, you know, with the Old Limerick Journal, and there's various, even the parish journals, which aren't historical journals, but you often get gems in those as well. But the Slivakti, like the quality is very high in it, like always, you know. And it kind of, you have the Slivakti, which is the East Clare, and then you have the other Clare. And there's some great articles, like, you know, and you'll always find something that's relevant. Like you might think, oh, Clare, I won't have any interest there. But people in Clare live the same as the people in Limerick. And there's similarities, you know, in all places, you know, and they're, I remember actually, Jerry, you might remember this. One of the best articles I saw in the Slivakti, well, not one of the best, but one of the most interesting one, was an old school photo that you picked out. That I can't remember who did it, but they took out each person and what they did in life, you know, afterwards.
Oh, yes, yeah.
A little biopic of each person in the photograph. No, it could be dangerous sometimes because people mightn't be as, you know, mightn't want to publicize how they get on. But it was fascinating to see each person and a little story, you know, behind the face. Yeah. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was Oliver Mahan, the poor man. He died there 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
His father wrote articles for us in the 1990s. They were from Derrygoolen in the heart of the Slivaktis.
Yeah.
His father was in the IRC and he lived between 91 and he was, until the day he died, he believed in the fairies.
Yeah.
And then his son was a teacher, and he later became a barrister. He was actually the one that brought up the little book that stopped all the suing going on in schools. Remember that 20 years ago?
Yeah.
The second week was like the what you call it, the medical code. Every second week was suing schools. But he wrote up the rules of it, and every school in Ireland since has got a copy of this, and the cases have dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
He died unfortunately a couple of years ago.
He must be young, was he?
He was young, can't see it. He was always fairly sickly, to be honest. But
Yeah.
he was always fairly sickly, but a real gentleman, like his father. Beautiful.
Yeah. But I thought it was like there was a lot of work behind it, but it was it's a great idea, you know.
It was. As you said, you want to be careful, wouldn't you?
Oh, gee. And that's one thing, you know. You're talking about suing there, like. You know, it's amazing how sensitive some people can be. And Tony and I have spoken about this before. And I remember there was a woman gunning for me from Glyn for years because I put a poem in. There was a Ballygilton Rural Journal, and at that time the Folklore Commission records weren't online. And I took a poem out of it about a fight in the fair at the fair in Glyn. It was published it was written in the 1940s, but it mentioned two families in Glyn, and like it was there for everybody to see. But this woman took it, and all the guy put down was submitted by Tom Donovan. I didn't even write it, and she was gunning for me for years. And I went to visit my mother one night in hospital. Tony remembers going into the same hospital, and the woman next door in the bed, I turned out to be the one who was after me, and she said to me, she thought I was my brother, and she said to me, does that brother of yours in Clare ever come up to visit your mother? And I said, no. I said, rarely. I said, which is me, you know, because I did the chorus thing and backed out, and she said, and I said, she'd be better off she wear the bonnet, you know, and she said, I'd believe it, you know. So I got out of it that way. But it's amazing how you can just over simple things, you know.
People get solved it out. But that article Jerry ran about, what was it for the school, was it?
The
Steve Ackley job.
Yeah, but what was it? The school and all the people?
Kilbake into school just outside Gott.
Yeah.
I think the photograph was from that school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that school, it was that school.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, I thought it was a great idea because usually you just see a photograph and names and it means nothing. But when you give a little few lines about each person, you know, who they played for, what they did in life afterwards, you know, it was an interesting concept, you know. But
I was going to say, Ger, I really got to know you through Holy Island. And I suppose a lot of people didn't know of its existence, the island itself, which isn't that far from Scariff, the bay. I know where you go out from, the landing port you go out from, but Holy Island is fascinating to see. Just explain where it is and what it is.
Well, it's really only about 300 or 400 meters from the mainland. About a mile and a half from actually Mount Shannon Harbour itself. But it's secluded places ensured its survival over the last 1,500 years. And it's probably the best preserved monastic site in the country, I'm quite sure. Like they done excavations there in the 70s and 80s during the summer with Dr. Liam de Boer, and that gave it a bit of a.
I don't think they would ever publish that.
Oh, so it was scandalous what they done. Scandalous. Yeah. Even all the material that they took out of it, like it was on display. I remember seeing it on display in the school in Mount Shannon. Nothing of any major importance in it, but lots of armlets and rings and bits and pieces like it. That was all brought up to the National Museum in Dublin, put all into the cellars. And I've tried several times since even to get a look at it. It'll never see the light of day again. It should have been left on the island. It should have been better.
We had that problem during Glyn. The school had a museum, and they came down and they took a whole quernstone, like a complete quernstone. Yes, and then we were going up to the museum, a bigger museum, so we asked them for it back. And a very nice lady came down to meet us, and she told us they have a warehouse. They moved all their stuff out to a central warehouse, and the labels on a lot of the artifacts were lost. So they don't know, like they haven't, but they don't know where they came from. So like that, your artifacts could be out there and they won't know where it came from.
Not that I don't care. As you said, a lovely lady came down to me a few years ago as well. There was crushing tough is still a big thing around here. And long may it last, I can tell you.
Yeah. Well,
we found
if the rains get away.
They won't. But they found bog busher, a big bog busher in it. And we reported it actually as a find. And this said a lovely lady came down from the last museum and convinced us to take it away to examine it, and she'd returned it. That's 15 years ago. Wouldn't even acknowledge emails or letters or anything. It's just jumping in that.
Listen, it's the person. But Holy Island, there's a beautiful view of Holy Island as you're going up the road from Killaloe, heading for Scariff.
Yes, indeed.
See outside. And I'm sure there are people that passed it and wondered what it was or how to get there, you know. And there's a round tower, there are remnants, I should say, of a round tower. And there's a lot of churches there. Even nicer than Scattery, really.
It goes back to pagan times. There are Browne stones from pagan times. And then there's about 128 early medieval grave slabs. They've never been disturbed in 1,000 years, which is a rare thing now. And most of them are actually under the ground. A few years ago there we had a Fiona O'Reilly from Cork. She's doing her doctorate on the stones on Holy Island, and she spent 2 summers out in Holy Island with her mother on her knees getting this work done. But she hasn't her doctorate finished yet. But it should be fascinating when she has the report done, because a lot of these were underground for 1,000 years, and that's why they're so well preserved in that.
And no markings on them, is there?
Just most of them just have a cross, but 128 have actually a cross or writing on them. But 70, but just a name. No, or the dear mother, or the Tony. There's no Tonys in it. No, you know that. Like, but there's no Browns right out there either.
Yeah. With an E, without an E. Yeah.
But you also, what about the church in Tumgraney?
We had a lease for 21 years from 1990. About 1989, we had a local historical society at that time like that, and we were looking for a place to just have a base really. And the church was empty, and that they wasn't doing anything in it. There was only 2 or 3 Protestant families in the area, and it was falling apart, and the windows were getting broken and all that. So that the dean at the time was delighted that we approached him. And we would preserve the church, we would maintain it, and he gave it to us for 21 years at €10 a year. And like we put a window here. I see 2 weeks ago there, you had the Ivers family on there. But we put the Ivers window from 6 Mile Bridge into that church. The 6 Mile Bridge Protestant church was being totally desecrated. It was a miracle. It was a miracle the window survived. That window was made in 1906 by a child. It's now valued at €1 million. We spent 5,000 or 6,000 preserving it. We took it out. We built up the wall again afterwards in 6 Mile Bridge. It wouldn't happen now. It shouldn't have happened then either. About it. Yeah. But the window was in Tumgraney with just a plain window. And this was meant for it. It was made no work to do on it, only fish it in. But having the clean them and all that like. And like we done all that, and we were there for 21 years. And 1912 then they decided we were making money there. Every Monday night we used to have what you call the postal woman. She's a brilliant singer, and
I know you mean from the postal
Monday night, and they used to divide the money between us. We'd get about 100 people in. We'd get about €100 for the Monday night. She'd get the rest, and the musicians get their share. It was good. Everybody was doing grand, but it was could be 100 cars outside, one in each car, as you know the way things.
Yeah.
But they got into the head that we were all cleaning up here, making serious money. So they wouldn't even tell us what they wanted. We offered €500 a year. They wouldn't even acknowledge that. We got nothing. So they really just wanted us out. And we didn't even argue them. I spent 30 years there.
Who's there, Ger? The representative church body?
The representative church body. Well, it's an English treasurer. He was the treasurer, an English treasurer. And I don't believe he was ever in it at any function or anything like that. But we just walked with it, and that's it. It's opened now again, all right. Just opened, and I think they have a video thing back in it. But
who's running it?
I think the local community, they just opened it. I don't think there's any charge. There's no charge. It's just open.
I think I met Michael O'Gorman there one time. Was he
I might
running?
be there for years as well.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been back there since, to be honest about it. I didn't.
No. You lose heart.
You lose complete heart. Like, we were all doing this volunteer for 30 years. But really, few force workers inside. Like, we have meetings every second week and third week. And fundraising, that thing, I'll be honest with you, I haven't been on any committee since I left that committee in 2013, and I swore I would never join a committee again.
Yeah.
I meet loads of friends about to talk history and do that, but I will not ever join a committee again. It's shocking.
We had the same, and then we had the Night Glen give us the old Protestant church, and the fundraising was for the insurance. We were fundraising for insurance, and we got busloads of tourists come, and our biggest expense was toilet rolls. They wouldn't pay the €2 or €3 to go into the centre. They'd use the toilets and walk. So we're paying insurance and toilet rolls. That was our biggest expense.
We had the very same problems.
You wonder then, is there an interest? Why are you doing it?
Well, there is. If they give up this thing, you're giving local communities, groups like ours, €1,000, €5,000. But you need a large scale project. You need to have 50,000 to be able to actually do anything.
That's right. Yeah.
Like Holy Island now at the moment, Clare County Council bought in 2015. The first of all spent 50,000 on a plan. That was 600 pages of total repetitive waffle.
A feasibility study. That's the first thing. And
last year they got €1 million. All that money has to be spent again on interpreting and putting in an interpretive centre in Mount Shannon. They have a building and all do that. And they want to get 2 50-seater ferries, and they want about putting a pier up on Holy Island. But this is all no shovel work. Nothing like that can be done. They're going near it. So in 6 years now, nothing whatsoever has been done.
Not for wasting money. There's somebody making money somewhere.
Look at the Cliffs of Moher in a prime example, 35 million it costs. I don't know what they're making a year there, but there's somebody making money in it anyway, and it's supposed to be shared around the county. It is fun. We never got to sit down with it anyway, I can assure you. Huh?
Tell me, Ger, Tuamgraney, first of all, what's the difference between Tuamgraney and Scariff, the distance-wise? There's none, is there?
No, the bridge in Scariff was the old divide, but there is really not.
Yeah, and why Tuamgraney? What's Tuamgraney mean?
Well, it probably goes back to pagan times again, like the River Graney and Loch Graney. They're all connected. This princess was supposed to have drowned above in Loch Graney. She flowed down the River Graney. She was found in Derry Graney just as it goes into Lochberg, and she was buried in Tuamgraney. So Tuamgraney is the tomb of Graney, Green. But more than likely, it's the altar of the sun. You could even call it. It's a pagan. I'm quite sure.
What about Scariff then itself?
Well, Scariff is only the village. I done a book. Well, I did a book on Scariff and Tuamgraney. Put the two of them together. But now I'm doing a book on during the COVID. I live in Minot. It's a very ancient parish, and that has been completely subsumed by Scariff. Scariff was only a village, wasn't even in Minot. But Minot is between Scariff and Mount Shannon. There's only ruins of a church there now and an O'Grady castle, and it's only about 8 townlands in it. But it goes up to Lochatorig and Woodford. And I thought there'd be an act in it, but I've ended up writing a book on it.
Yeah, is there a graveyard in Minot? A big graveyard?
It's a old graveyard, yes.
Yeah, I know that. But Minot House was owned by the Druze now, wasn't it?
No, they were never in Minot House. Minot House, the Ringroses, Gary Ringrose, the man that he wasn't great now today, but that's the main thing. The Ringroses, the first Ringrose in Ireland settled in Minot.
Yeah.
Not actually in Minot House. That wasn't built until the late 1700s. The first Ringroses came in 1650 as part of, after Cromwell's time, the Mile Line. No Irish could settle between the Shannon and Mile inland. That was only for the army and soldiers. So the Ringroses there's no account of them actually being in the army here, but they must have bought up the land in the 1850s. And the first of them, he lived to be about 104, but his son, Colonel John, he had 2 daughters and a son. And the son, unfortunately, died in 1746 from, above all things, a septic, a ducty plaster. He got some kind of a cross, and He got dirty plaster was put on his, and he died, a young man. But he has the two sisters. One of them married Bowerman from Cork, Cullen in Cork. And the other, Margaret, she married Francis Drew from Drews called 1716. But they didn't come really to Scariff until about 1800. The Bowermans did know. They came, and they were here for about 100 years. But they've a very bad history. Even Elizabeth Browne, who wrote the book on the bones of Bonescourt. Yeah, they looked after one of their children at one stage. Second, they had nothing, absolutely nothing really loud.
Ger, I remember ringing back 35 years ago. My father-in-law was home from Australia, and his ancestors came from around the Salmons from Mount Shannon, and he told me his great grandmother Salmon, yeah.
Salmon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're here next door to me.
What?
They're here next door to me.
Yeah, but he said to me, his grandmother used to say, I went to school in Mount Shannon on the bones of Clare. And I remember asking you, and you said to me, he's right, because Mount Shannon was in Galway. Yes. She was going to school on the bones of Clare, which was the Clare bones.
In 1898, for some reason, they changed all that.
Yeah.
Like, the Bow River was always the bones. The Bow River divides Mino from Mount Shannon. And it's a natural river from Loughdere right up to Loughatore. And it's a natural bones. But somebody in 1898 just threw a line on a map. That's how it looks like.
Yeah.
And that's the new bones, and that's the way since.
Yeah. So it came into Clare.
So you remember when you said one of the Drews married Ringrose? Their child then was Ringrose Drew.
Yes, one of them was Ringrose Drew.
A poem written about him, about his nose. I can never think of it. I remember Max Joyce. I remember him telling me about a story one time about something could never something. The nose of Ringrose Drew. Simply, Max Joyce told me he had a very big nose. He had a massive nose, and they could never kind of satisfy him. You couldn't satisfy his nose of Ringrose Drew because Mannix was familiar with the land they had in County Limerick, as opposed to you were set up in County up near Scariff, you know.
Yeah.
But they're gone. I wonder if there are them around who got from under.
Who, the Ringroses?
Yeah, both of the Ringroses and the Drews.
But the Ringroses are still in Limerick. The man there a few years ago, the chef, the equipment of the Irish horse team, the Irish in the 60s, 70s. He was pretty famous.
Ringrose, yeah.
Ringrose, yeah. They're still outside in Party in Mealich in that area there. There's still a big estate there.
You mentioned Gary Ringrose. Ger.
I actually can't place the line up between him and the first Ringrose. There's a few.
Was Gary Ringrose related to the chef to keep?
Probably was. Probably. Oh yeah. As I said, every Ringrose in Ireland is descended from this Ringrose family of Mino. They got the name. The name was Rose, seemingly, and Queen Elizabeth granted one of them a ring for some military.
Yeah.
And they put the ring onto the name. That's how they get the name Ringrose. But they're definitely the first Ringrose in Ireland settled here. And they seem to be all most.
Who's the other family, Ger, that had land in? I can't think of the big vault. It's in your book, the one with the white cover now. I know.
Sampsons.
Who?
Sampsons.
No. And there's some other family that had land in Scariff.
The Brady's.
Who?
The Brady's of Raheen, of course. They would have land all over the place.
No. Oh, that's McLeish's place we're on about those, Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Good Dr. McLeish.
Oh, yeah, the Reeds.
Reeds, that's it.
Philip Reed, he was in Mount Shannon.
Mount Shannon, yeah.
Mount Shannon was built as a Protestant village. Back in 1738, 50 Protestant families were brought down from the north of Ireland and settled there and set up the linen industry there. This Alexander Woods, he came out from Limerick. He was in business anyway, even though he died in Dublin.
We had a lecture on that, Ger, in Tony. Do you remember citing the Redemptorist, a guy, he was like, I can't think of his name, on the linen industry in Mount Shannon.
Oh, yeah, Murphy.
Yeah.
Was it Murphy?
Yeah.
Murphy.
Last year for us.
Because he went through the families who came down from
Families that come down from the 6 counties, like.
Yeah, no,
Because-
we don't know. We can't. I never could find the 50 families, but about 20 definitely no problem. The Allens, the Bouchers, and the Clarks, and
Was it Winters?
Winters. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, about 20 families I can recognise. They all had lasted. It was going great in the very beginning. The first Alexander Woods was a brilliant man, but within 3 generations, within 30 years, 3 generations of them had died. And then there was a big family dispute over wills and this and that and the other. They were making course linen for the British Army, for the tunics of the British Army during the American Wars and all that. And then afterwards in the Napoleonic Wars between 1800 and 1815, there was great demand for coarse linen as well.
Yeah.
But after 1815, all that fell apart.
Oh yeah.
So they all headed for Canada, and were very much involved in the building of canals and that in Canada, and they're still there. Still, Longs now is another family that were very big out there.
Yeah.
Which now?
Longs.
Oh yeah.
Bruce Elliott, she wrote a great book on them, Irish migrants and the Canadas.
I have it, yeah. It's very good. Yeah.
On both sides of the lake, like he explains how they intermarried all across the lake. Like these were Protestants. And they weren't going to marry Paddy up the road like with those men. Anyway, so all the marriages were across the lake, across Loch Derg. Married in Boris Kane and in Terry Glass and Gary Kinnan in Romania. And he researched all that. A brilliant book. Great book.
Yeah, because the church in Mount Shannon is used, isn't it? The Church of Ireland.
It's going well, yeah. They have service there every Sunday.
Every Sunday, yeah.
Every Sunday, yeah. But the one in they have it every month, I think. But they're supposed to have it every month. But the last Protestant family in Scariff was Sparlings. They were there for 200 years. But Alan Sparling, he died there last year, I think. He's really
Sparlings are in Limerick as well, because they were Palatine family.
That's the same family, same family.
Yeah. They moved into Limerick. Well, a lot of them Rathkeil, fair amount of Sparlings around Rathkeil and Croke.
That's what they started out from, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were Palatines. But who owned the land in Scariff? Who was the landlord? Like the
Brady's. The Brady's owned nearly all of Scariff. The Brady's owned all of Scariff. The Drews, of course, didn't own it. From Drews, like this side of it. Yeah,
were they the same Brady's that married into the Ivors?
No, I don't know any connection with the Ivors. No.
Yeah, no, because we had the Ivors family on there when I.
Yes, I listened to that.
Yeah, but there was a Brady married into the Ivors family there from down around Dennis. I can't think of it.
Might have been a Brady. Was it from?
Is it Grady or Brady?
Brady. Brady's
Oh, sorry. No. I didn't think. I thought you said Brady. Sorry. Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, you wrote a book about the O'Grady's, didn't you?
I did indeed. My wife was an O'Grady. I wrote a book first of all on the O'Maddens back in a long time ago. I'm actually reprinting it again this year. It's ready to be reprinted. But that one went very well, to be honest about it. And my wife being an O'Grady, she kind of insisted on writing the O'Grady's. So I did. I'd done that in 2007, and of all the books I've ever done, it didn't really sell near as good as any of the other books I'd done. And the O'Grady's of Clare and Limerick, but we were even John Granny. We were going to with a can gathering there in 1991 or 2. We were going to build on the O'Grady connection with John Granny, which was huge back in 1,000 years ago. But then the figures, the Corsi O'Grady, the last real O'Grady, he died in 1993. He was Lieutenant Colonel Juddle Vigors, the Corsi O'Grady. He was a gentleman, absolute gentleman. He was made a what did they call it? McLeod made him a title, something of the O'Grady. It was not an honorary title, but one of these titles. They're gone anyway since, these titles. But his son is Henry Grady. He's over in London. He's in sports, something to do with sports anyway. But he has no interest whatsoever. His grandson, actually, his son died young, and his grandson is now the O'Grady. But I think I met him once. No interest whatsoever in the family.
Well, he's children that have any interest in families.
There's an O'Grady still in Kilballion in the house. Right, yeah, she's interested. And like Michael, Knockany graveyard down there, that's a veritable outdoor museum to the O'Grady's, like with all the boys.
What is? That's what the Church of Ireland, they use that now for concerts.
Fascinating, yes, yeah. They're doing great work there, absolutely great work there.
Yeah.
But up here they're very scarce.
Getting back to the Brady's, there was a family called Brady who were married to the Brownes up in Tulla.
Well, the Brady Browne, yeah, that's how they got the Brady Browne. They had to take the name Browne.
Yeah, they're all buried in the church is gone now, the graveyard there in Tulla. If you're going from Limerick on the right hand side.
Yeah, he took the name Browne. He had to part of the will, the Browne will was he took the name Browne. Yeah.
I was in that graveyard last year. Actually, it was after what's his name's funeral. I can't give his name now this minute. Who was running the Tulla Society? Who was over the 3 years?
There's Michael Torpy.
Michael Torpy.
Okay.
It was after his funeral. Actually, I was over his funeral.
He was very interested.
But all the Brady Brownes are buried.
Yeah.
Inside that's graveyard there. The church is gone. All that's left now is the mark of it on the ground.
Yeah, the church has gone since 1959, I think. That was a beautiful church. But they couldn't knock it fast enough. They couldn't. In those days, like, they got a chance to knock a Protestant church. They took it fairly.
And it's just there like in an open space.
That was a beautiful building. Absolutely. Everything was on it. But they were delighted, like knocking English, cutting down beech trees and everything English. Burning everything English only that road, isn't it?
It's terrible, really. But Mount Shannon, didn't you? Who owned Mount Shannon?
The 10 days, well, the first owner of Mount Shannon, the Dailies of Dunsandel.
Oh, Dunsandel, yeah.
Galway, they owned it, but they had no interest in it. There was nothing there. There was nothing whatsoever there. Like, it was just, and then, because always, as I said, an area of contention between Portumna and Scariff because of the divide. And it's only a narrow passage between Connacht and Munster. And like the O'Donnell and Sarsfield and all the boys and not came down that route, and the O'Briens from this side, they went up that road. So anybody living on that road, they didn't have it easy. So there was nobody settled there as such. So the Dailies gave it to this Alexander Woods for just a mere peppercorn, but he had to build a school, and he had to bring down his 50 families, and he had to set up the linen industry and all that, which he did from 1740 till he died in 1766. In that 26 years, the place was booming. There's no question about that.
Amazing. From a wilderness.
And the buildings are still there. The market house is still there that he built. It's the same as the day he built it. The upstairs is in it. Nothing belongs to Keynes now. The publicans in Mount Shannon. There's that should have been the interpretation of Holy Island. To be quite honest about it, nothing has changed. The windows, doors, everything is the same as they were in 1747. Nothing has been in there for hundreds of years apart from Keynes and an undertaker's business. They had hearse and coffins and stuff like that in there.
Yeah.
Nothing in there.
But the famine had an awful effect in that area. Like Pat O'Brien has a book coming out now, and it's a history of Broadford. I know it's further down.
It's coming out now. You said now. That's coming out now.
Well, no, it's actually I've read it. It's
good.
The COVID put a stop to it, but no, it's a fascinating, like, to think that for 50 years only, kind of a snapshot in history, and the effects the famine had in that area was, and it's the same, like, if you read, I mentioned the paper.
Bradford was in the Scariff Workers Union.
Pardon?
Bradford was never in the Scariff Workers Union.
No, but it was connected to Limerick. But reading that and reading the Scariff, the Michael O'Gorman's, the Paper Tigers, was it?
Yes.
Like the famine really hit that area very badly, compared to say Limerick, or it hit everywhere.
It's supposed to be second to Skibbereen. Skibbereen just got a big all the publicity it got. But here in Scariff, it was absolutely shocking. The landlords and the big farm was like, handing the running of the poor law of 1838 to them was the crime against humanity, like, because they were
they were the paymasters, so they weren't going to put themselves to expense to
people. They couldn't get the poor off the land quick enough.
Oh no, and it was temporary expediency. They were getting the tenants off the land, and they weren't able to relieve them, and just ship them out. That was the main thing, like, you know. And if they died, it was.
They didn't care.
No.
One thing about the family Scariff, there's a beautiful graveyard, the Cashier, we call it, that's just outside the village, and it was completely overgrown, and we have that restored as a family memorial park now.
Yeah.
There could be 7,000-8,000 people buried there, but there's only one headstone to a traveller woman that died in the 1960s, Mary Kerrigan. She had 21 children, this woman, and actually at least one of her children is still alive. And they were the only ones that used to come back for the last 100 years and do anything with it. The place is completely overgrown.
Yeah.
New graveyard now right beside it. And in the 90s, they thought about bulldozing this graveyard and turning it into a new graveyard. But luckily enough, the Heritage Group, we were there and we stopped that, and we planted it with the indigenous trees of Ireland and Arbahen. No machine was ever allowed into it.
Yeah.
And it's probably unique in the country because there are no headstones in it, no modern headstones.
Yeah.
And all the pits that they do are all still there. You can see all the pits and the whole that. It's probably the most. It's the proudest thing. We're more proud of doing that than any other thing we've done.
Well, where I live now in Clarina, there's a part of Kilkeedy graveyard there's no headstones, and I asked the local man, who's dead now, but he said to me, "Oh, that's where the people died during the famine, and there was never anybody. There was no headstones there, but people didn't bury anybody there afterwards, like, you know, so it was left."
That's good. There's the other graveyards around here, like the one in Minot, that big one that you were talking about. They were burying them there up to about 1849. The famine graveyard was only bought in 1849, but they were burying them in that graveyard and attached to the Protestant church in Drumgraney. And even the one in Minot, they were bringing sand up from the lake. There was no point in digging. Bodies were left on the ground, and they brought sand up from the lake and covered the bodies with sand. It was that full. And there are still burials going on there, and there are people that will tell you that there are no graves. Like the recycling of graves all over.
Oh yeah. Well, I know a graveyard where a gravedigger told me he found bits of headstones when if a family died out in the parish, the grave was dug and the headstone was knocked in with a sledge into the bottom of the grave, and that was, you know, because you see families, you know, say especially farmers now who would have had land, and you know they'd have a headstone up to them, and they're gone, but their headstone is probably inside in the grave, like, you know.
The throws at a vault in Minot, not a trace of it. Not a trace. Like 150 years ago in Minot.
Really have to believe that the graveyards can kind of disappear, you know. That people just, oh God, it's terrible. So the same in Limerick. There's a pauper's graveyard here in Limerick, and 90% of the people don't even know about it.
No.
And there's nothing there, only a cross.
That's that.
Yeah.
I was in that one there opposite Thomond Park. That's
it.
I was in there 20 years ago, and like it just to bring tears to your eyes like that.
It's terrible.
Absolutely.
There could be a couple of thousand buried there.
Every headstone was broken. Like, there was nothing in there, only bottles and waste.
The mass centre, which I was at about 4 years ago, I'd say, and other than that, and even at that mass, there was about, I'd say, about 10 people at it, and but like that, people don't even.
But there was. I mean, you get reports in newspapers of them carting people, usually at night time, taking bodies out to the pauper's graveyard from the workhouse. So it was near enough to the workhouse there.
Very convenient.
Yeah, of course.
But they didn't take them during the day because of the sensibilities of the people. So
but even in Limerick, they objected at where the River House, across from Bankers Hospital, there were big jobs all along there. And all the people would be at their windows during the day, while the wives did nothing else to be doing, really looking out the window, that's their servants. And the bodies would have been taken out of Barrington's, and they objected to it. They didn't want the sight of bodies being carted out. So around the corner, which look like I have a slide of it, is demolished now. They made a big archway where they would pass the bodies out and back into what's now Mary Street, and carry them to Nicholas Street and out to again, out to the pauper's graveyard. Hard to believe, you know, but like that, people don't care. It's like the old saying, there's no votes in a graveyard.
Oh,
Won't get a politician never to talk about a graveyard.
Once the will is read, just that's all forgotten, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. And even Killeen graveyard. Right? Now, even Killeen graveyard, like, is in a terrible state, and you know, but I mean, but even like apart from politicians, you think the families don't look after our graves either.
No. But there would be the same all over the country, only for forest schemes and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Very few people look after their graves. Very few.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've stopped taking people out. Well, obviously there was nothing happened last year now, taking people out to Holy Island for visits out in the boat.
I had a good year last year. I had a funeral in June of last year. And like every year we'd have 2 or 3 funerals, but we haven't had many now for the last few years because there is a new graveyard in Scariff, and younger families in particular, they go to the new graveyard rather than going to Holy Island because of the difficulties of going out there during the winter. But last year I had a funeral on Holy Island in June, and I left the boat in the water, and I had one of the busiest Julys ever. Dublin people.
Who brought the coffin out?
I brought out the boat.
Couldn't be me.
Maybe that.
You could bring it out yourself.
Ethna O'Brien will be buried out there. She's a
great.
What
day did she last week? She's 140 or something. Was she? Where was she?
She got a big honour from the French government last week.
She was 90, I think, was she? 90.
1938. 90, what towards her?
Yeah.
1938 or 39 she was born.
She was born.
But her parents are buried in Chungani behind the Palestine Church, in the graveyard there.
Her parents are
buried there. Like she was living in Chungani.
But she going to Holy Island.
She never got with the father in life, and she's not good.
Why is she going to? Why is she been buried in Holy Island?
It's her grandparents are Clary's from Mount Shannon, and her grandmother. She loved her grandmother. Even one of her books, Pagan Place, is nearly based on that, but she loved her grandmother, and she wants to be buried there. She has her grave, all the details. She's all done. She's going to be buried there, so it's still be a big. That grave would be a big attraction for.
You didn't get a deposit or anything, did you?
No, that's.
I asked for a deposit.
We don't charge for bringing out coffins. You wouldn't very well. They'd look after you. They'd buy you dinner afterwards. They'd buy you a pint or something.
Oh God. Anyway, you mentioned earlier on, Joe, we were on about Raheen, which is now a hospital. That's still operating as a hospital, isn't it?
Oh, a brilliant home there.
Is it?
Very, very good home. Long way to stay. Huh?
That was McLeis's house, wasn't it?
No, it was never his house.
I thought, well, didn't these people come out of there, I thought?
But the big house was, they knocked the big house in the 50s to make roads for the
I was never in there, yeah. And I never passed the road out, I was threatening to go in just to see, but the big house is gone.
The house is there, you can see the tile floors and that are still there. They just took every stone, and probably all cut stone and made roads in the factory.
The entrance was inside in Tumgraney, wasn't it? Isn't that the entrance there on the right hand side?
There were 3 lodges to that house. There's one opposite the Protestant church, and there's one at the hospital. There's two lodges, and there's another lodge opposite the hospital in about 200 metres. Actually, 3 lodges going into the old house was in there.
Because he did some great work on families. I suppose his book has always been referred to as.
But there's he did a lot of. It was until people started to study a little bit deeper. Like,
it was, that's what I mean.
There's a lot of
few claims to kings and queens and things like that. There's a big book, Tom, and McLeis's.
There's 2 volumes.
2 volumes, yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd know from reading it yourself. You'd know this.
But he was himself, like, you know, he claimed himself that he was born at sea, like, you know. Like his birth certificate and all is available now.
Yeah.
I think he's there now. Like one of his cousins down in where's that place down in Mallow? They wrote a book.
Oh, there is actually Hazelwood.
Hazelwood
House
in the 90s.
I know it, yeah.
I think the family tried to even buy up.
The hotel across from it called Springfield Hall, or
They
He's
give
an accountant, I think, in Mallow he was anyway. I think he was an accountant. I'd love to see that house, because they're all buried now. I know where they're buried. They're buried in St. John's Church in Buttevant. And it was on television the other night, though, actually. That church was. You go in the side of what's his name's house, Michael O'Callaghan, he used to have a band one time, Michael O in Buttevant. You go in the side of his house there, there's a pathway going into this church, St. John's Church, and all the MacLyses are buried in a big long row. All these, the ones of the house, Hazelwood House.
Yeah.
But I forgot though that they were related to the Dr. MacLyses.
They're the same. Them MacLyses, but are related to the Ringroses as well. One of the Ringroses, one of the Ringroses married the MacLyses as well. They came across there lately.
But the doctor didn't change his name to MacLyses.
I did just.
They had the nursery.
He was a brilliant man. There's no question about that. Like, he's a really intelligent man. But like he had to fiddle his age and everything to get into the government department. He became chief herald, was it, in 1934?
Yeah.
He was over 50 years of age when he became chief herald. And at that time, I think you couldn't get any of these positions if you were over 50.
Yeah.
His first wife was alive when he married the second one. And, like, he was a staunch Catholic and all that. There's a lot of interesting things with that in his life. But having said that, like, he was definitely a brilliant.
But he lived to be about 93, didn't he? 92 or 93.
Pretty great age anyway, that's for sure.
Right.
Did he write a book, Ireland in the 18th century?
No, in the 17th century. Irish life in the 17th century.
17th century, yeah.
Yeah, very good, actually. Very good book. And he wrote books. He wrote even books in Irish. He wrote books of poetry and everything.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant man. There's no doubt about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
But,
he didn't live in that house, didn't he, Raheen? I thought though he did.
Oh, he did, yeah, for years, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that in the hospital.
Oh, yeah. In the old house, I was saying.
No, he did. Oh, he lived there for years.
It must have been a beautiful place, Ger, because Limerick people will know it now. If you're driving to Tumgraney from Killaloe, let's say, and you open, it's all on your right hand side. Beautiful wooded area there.
That's the thing. Even they preserved the wood there. The wood was could be 200 acres of wood still there with Raheen. And like it has been with oak trees, and there's an oak tree could be 500-600 years old. They call it the Browne oak, which is probably the oldest oak trees in Ireland. And the wood is immaculate. It's a beautiful place. That
must have given the family the idea to start the nurseries, was it? MacLyses, the nurseries.
Not really to give employment. Like, he'd done everything in his power to give employment in when he came there in 1906. He really was serious about giving employment, like, you know. Like, the nursery was a great idea like that. He was no farmer. He learned a bit of farming he had from Browne's in O'Brien's Bridges, that down there, that Browne family down there. They were landlords. They were related to him.
The Brownes in Ugrove.
No, down around O'Brien's Bridge.
Oh, Brian, that's right. I know the family you mean. Clanboy House.
Clanboy, yes. Clanboy.
That's where Limerick. They'd end up where I'm living myself now, they had. Okay,
that's where he lived in his family.
They were in Rathkeale as well, Mount Browne, Rathkeale. Yeah. Same family. And they had a fair bit of land in Limerick. They bought a lot of buildings in Limerick, they had as well. They didn't have the leasehold, but they owned the buildings, you know. But I forgot about that Browne family now. They're buried actually, I know where they're buried, in the churchyard there in O'Brien's Bridge, inside with the old church. Again, another church that's gone.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Open space again. I know that graveyard in there. And
the Brownes are gone completely from there, haven't they? No Brownes there now.
No. I wonder, did they leave a will? Could I check it out?
Well, they've no.
No, not to me, no.
You could be very disappointed, like, you know.
Well, our court never took the soup, you see. You know, that's the problem. They should have taken it a long time ago. I wouldn't refuse it.
You could probably find your records in the Mother and Child. You could have been sold off in the 60s.
But anyway, we're moving away again from Scariff. We get into trouble here. What's his name? Was a lay minister, wasn't he, up there in Mount Shannon as well, wasn't he? You weird? Wasn't he a lay minister?
Well, it was until
Ballinakilly is a Ballinakilly
Press, yes, Miss C.
Killer, yeah. Like he was on television one night.
15 years, like he doesn't start style now.
Yeah. But he was there was a program on it on television, and he was a minister. He
liked it, loved it.
Because I tried to get into that church one Sunday. I granted now should have been late earlier in the day, but it's all closed up. I was never in that church.
In where?
In Mount Shannon. Church on Mount Shannon.
Yeah.
Because it's in good condition.
That's a beautiful inside. Beautiful church, yeah.
You know what, Tom, the church above the top of the village in Mount Shannon?
The Protestant church.
Yeah.
Protestant church. No.
It's on the left-hand side going up. And
I know it, but I was never in it. Yeah.
Yeah, take you right and you take it down onto the thing. Come here, I have to ask you about what about the eagles that were put out there? I still don't know.
2012, the first eagles to hatch out in Ireland, weren't they? After a nest, 2012, and it was great. Their council went mad, and the local committee was set up, and the Eagle Trust crowd, they all went mad. They spent 25,000 and put a horse in the harbour in Mount Shannon, and Congella Maguire, the heritage officer in Clare, boasting that this was worth 600,000 a year to the economy, based on both frauds figures how they do this thing. They weren't worth 600 euro a year to the economy. Like people who came to see the Eagles, like most of them were eating out of the bush the car, like.
It wasn't fungi didn't appear up there, like.
I was there.
No, there was no boat trips. You couldn't even bring a boat to 100 metres of the island, like, there was no way anybody else could make a penny on it. But anyway.
Sunday, I went up there. Who had the telescope?
The local committee, yes, yeah.
I went into the telescope and I was looking at it for, I must have been at least a half hour looking, and I got sick of it. I came away. You tell me every minute now, hold on another while, and I was waiting and waiting. But are those eagles still there?
Well, they're in, if you go down to the Forest Park in Matumna, they're a different pair, but they're down the Forest Park in Matumna on Church Island and in the bay, and you can see them nearly any day from the walk inside around the golf course, that area there. But down there, they kept it all under wrap. There's no blowing their trumpet about them. They're not inviting people to see them. That's all out. They won't let anybody out near them, any of that. But there was nobody really in charge, but they're just keeping it so quiet. But then they nest out there every year. But in Mount Shannon, should they put up a big dish outside one of the islands to relay it back into the harbour in Mount Shannon, to a house in the harbour in Mount Shannon, which they rented, to relay this back, and crowds of people were supposed to be going in there to look at it. So when the Eagles seeing this big dish outside, that was it, they left, and that was it. But they moved to another island then, and unfortunately the female, they were going grand for a year, I think they hatched out, and 2015, and then the female got the avian flu or something and died, and the male flew off and he hasn't come back since.
You would have to different side today.
I don't know. They left him alone. Like even outside in Holy Island, or the ravens nest in Holy Island every year for the last 50 years. There were two pair. There's one pair there now. And it's a delight to see them this time of the year now. They come then nest very early in the year and have the young very early in the year. See them birds and lambs and that I suppose really. But they're absolutely wonderful to see. And they're in the round tower, in the window of the round tower. Yeah. It's absolutely, but we keep it completely quiet because I tell you that whatever is about birds, people go a bit crazy, to be quite honest about it.
Yeah.
But they're there, and the raven is the emblem of the Vikings and all. It's on every Viking shield, and they're aboard the boat.
Yeah.
They're a really spectacular board, like, and it's great to see them around. But I know they would leave in the morning if they were this stuff. They don't like people. That's just, I know that.
Yeah.
They do that.
That's why they're on Holy Island.
That's why they're on place.
But is the marina used now? Like, I know you have about that, but is it used much, that big marina they built in Mount Shannon?
Well, for the last 2 years, well, it's the rich man's Kilkee. To be honest, most of the boats now are just tied up there, and they come out on the long weekends, and they have their gin and tonics and whatever on the boat. They talk about their sails and their boats and what they did and what they didn't do. The sailing club is there. They do have their races normally. Like, it's a great asset to the place, but as far as like anytime they have a function, they put up a tint and that their own tint, and I don't know much is worth the economy. It's nice to see the boats anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Your friend, remember your friend I was on with you one night? He was very obsessed when I Michael Quinlan, when I said he had a yacht in
Oh, yeah.
right to the small Porsche Mount Shannon. He loved Mount Shannon, no, genuinely. Michael loved every chance he got, he came up there. But he had a small Porsche Mount Shannon, and his family's teeth.
Yeah.
Fishing company, they had a yacht in Mount Shannon.
Didn't like a bit of it.
yeah.
You kind of make him want to something else. Listen, there are other islands, Ger, out there.
Pardon?
There was an island out there that you go by Lough Harrington. With the what used to say, when the Mayfly would be up, they were going out to these islands.
Oh, that's down in Rossmore, in Woodford.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a hush on the island, or whether they're still on the island, I don't actually know. Every island in Lough Derg, there's 376 islands in Lough Derg, and they're all privately owned. It's hard to believe it, but they're all actually privately owned.
The Winston's owned one, yeah.
Oh, the Winston's on Island Moor. That's the biggest inland island in Europe. There are over 200 acres in that. But there's a German owns it now. Some relation of LD and Littles, that family. They own it now. They only use it for shooting every year. They just go cordon and don't cut the rain of that for the pheasants. And every year then you pay about €400 for your day's shooting on the island. And I thought it is wrong because the pheasants would walk up to you like they're tame, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
all they do with the island. But it's a magnificent island. Beautiful island.
Fish in a barrel, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
a good few islands there now that you see them on the maps, you know. And I remember somebody telling me that Lough Harrington had one there.
Yeah, he has one below my score, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a house on it now. I haven't seen it now in a long time. Whether they still own it or I don't know. But
Yeah. He's there. He's had it for a few years now. You know, they might have sold it.
Yeah.
They might still have it because you did have a journalist on the other side as well, both road side.
There's one great road. All the county councils around the lake now. Like there's no way you can't even cut the briars on the islands anymore. There was a time if you had enough money, you could put a mobile home out, or you could build a timber house and build something on it. But that's all over. They'll never allow anyone to build on an island again. Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
Outside it's pretty safe now. Then again, the county council own on Holy Island. Like one of the things they have is they want to build a hush on Holy Island for the caretakers, and they want to build a medical hush out there, like in toilets. So if they start building on it, they will destroy it. There's no no building in the island.
We've seen interpretive centres grow before, like, and next of all they're putting in a cinema. And nobody goes into it's like the Cliffs of Moher. Nobody wants to go to see they go down to see the Cliffs. They're not going to see an interpretive centre. And certainly, if you've seen them once before, you're not going to go in the second time. Like, you know?
I've been in Cliffs of Moher once since they built that interpretive centre. I going there, the kids growing up. Don't go in there. No, if I go, I walk. I go to Doolin and walk along.
Yeah.
That's right. To pay €8 a head to go into.
Well, my daughter went down with there was 5 of them in the car, and they were looking for €40 for her to park the car. Yeah. And like they were going down for a walk.
Yeah.
You know, and she did allow 3 of them beforehand, and they spot her, and they made her pay the €40, like, which is it's just
cash register tourism, isn't it?
What?
These are just cash register tourism, isn't it?
Oh, that's all. Yeah. And Tony, you had a group down one day, and you were had them in Limerick before they went on, and he said the bus driver said you take your time because he was trying to get up after the cash registers were closed, so that he'd take me. He wouldn't be caught for the bus, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah. I do. As I said, if the fly stick to the wall, you know. Ger, I forgot to ask you what about that tower house that you're supposed to bring me out to? You know, wrap me out, Ger. The one down at the edge of the water.
Oh, that's the one in a gondola between Killaloo and Scariff.
Yeah. It's
a beautiful building. Anytime at all you come, no problem. It belongs to Pat Cordy. Pat bought that in the 90s. Pat works for Common one of them, and his wife is a teacher, an art teacher.
Yeah.
And 5 or 6, I think there were many boys there, 5 or 6 boys. They're all grown up now. One of them was actually training to get on the Irish swimming Olympic team. He was inside in Limerick every morning at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get the pool. But I don't think he made the grade. But a beautiful family. But Pat's father was had a sawmill over in Tipperary in Garrick. He lived himself in a thatched house over there. Still lives in a attached house over there. But he bought that place. I'd say he bought it very, very cheap. I'd say 10,000 baht. But he done all the work himself. Never got a cent in rent. And he opened it about 2010, electricity, everything in it. For the first year or two, he was inviting people in there and that. But now the family just use themselves for the summer. And none of the hassle of it. Like, he's no more.
It's not advertised or anything. A lot of people don't even know it's there.
But he doesn't. Oh yeah, but he doesn't even want people to go in there anymore. There's no entrance from the road into it. You see.
Yeah.
Yeah. He can go in with the permission of the owner that's there. But otherwise, it's all by boat. But really, he doesn't want people into it. He's not that type.
And you could go by boat then. Where would you have to go from? From Mount Shannon across?
Yeah, from Mount Shannon or Scariff. Yeah.
How long does it take to get across in a boat?
It's 20 minutes. That's 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would get you into it, all right.
I'd like to see it, would you know?
He's really furnished properly in the whole lot. But as I said, he applied for grants, everything for that, and nothing. And the OPW at the time in the 90s when he was doing it, they gave him hell. But he was looking at it because Smith was a minister in Tipperary.
Yeah. Michael Smith,
and he was very friendly with him, same with he, and he put a stop to the OPW. Like, they wanted him to do archaeological, in the water.
Oh yeah,
leagues and all that. Like,
and
then his father gave him all the oak to make the floors and ceilings and all that. Like, and a firm group of lads down in Gillaloo, stonemasons, they did the work. He just showed up what could be done all over the country. Like, I'd say he had the whole thing done at 200,000. I'd say is as much as he spent on the buying it and doing it up, and that wouldn't pay to survey to do up one,
No. Oh no, but I like anyone who's involved in restoring old buildings. All Tower Houses, Castle will tell you keep away from the OPW because they close it up and they'll do reports and everything and do nothing with it. Do nothing of a physical nature.
But they let you do that, and then they have to supervise everything you do. You paid somebody for the ages to stand up watching the work run out, like.
And they have to do an archaeological survey. They wouldn't put a shovel in there at all. They have to do a survey.
But they want to restore any old. They want to restore any old castle themselves. They'll stick up a foregrah sign. They say another foregrah.
That castle, Ger, you can only see the top of it at one point of the road on the way up to Tumgraney.
Yes.
Come to a bend of the road there and you can see it below on the right hand side. But there's there must be a better view from the other side, is there? From the Gary Kennedy side across.
No, that's too far. You won't see it at all from there. That's the only view which you'll get is from the O'Gunnola Road.
What's the history of it, Ger?
This is a McNamara Castle built around in the 1500s. Yeah. They owned that land all around there, like, and Scariff Bay would have been a fairly busy place in those times with the Graney River going up to Scariff. And they built it, and not wanting another fell apart. But then in the 1820s, it was a great, like a lot of the islands, there were ideal places for making poutine. We're making it in a big scale on that island. And the revenue officers at that time in the 1800s, the early 1800s, were based in Gillaloo. And they came up with that cannon and blew it up from the mainland, knocked the east wall of it. And that was the end of that. So since then, it's just left there.
Has he access into it? I thought he'd access into that castle one day a year or something, was that?
Yeah, he would. The woman that owns it is McNamara still owns it. Like, she lives above the road beside that lay-by. She lives there, and she gave him. He had to make a road actually down to it from there, which is only of her use to her now for the land. But when he was doing the work on it, she let him do this. No, she was very kind to him, to be honest about it.
Yeah.
But anytime he wants to go down, then she let him down. But he didn't. He doesn't regard that privilege, like,
Yeah.
But he comes himself by boat even. And then
I'll take my life in my hand and I'll go up the boat with you if we get a bit of fine weather in May or June.
And we put a life jacket. We were 2 life jackets on you.
Oh yeah, that's good. Anyway. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
I was just saying, does the lake, does it? I know it's a lake, but does it get rough often?
Oh Lord, yes. Particularly particularly when the wind blows from southwest, blows from that castle, that area there.
Yeah.
200 days of the year we get wind from the west. We call it the Scariff breeze in Mount Shannon and Garrickindin in places. We're not so bad in Mount Shannon, it's fairly central. But from Scariff to Garrickindin, that's the widest part of the whole lake. It's about 8 miles. And like them waves can pick up like 6-7 feet in that, no problem at all. And it can do so in an hour too. You have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Out in the lake, like, you know, but where I'm based now in Mount Shannon, like, you'd be very unlucky to be caught out and very foolish to go out if it was that way. So.
Yeah. But I mean, you wouldn't get caught when you're out there.
You could very easy. Not in short distance, not in a very good one. Mount Shannon.
Yeah.
But if you're crossing the lake now to Garrickindin and Drummondere, you get caught like you didn't know.
Long distance, yeah. So it's like the sea. You have to be aware. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's a dangerous state. No year goes by there doesn't tame somebody.
Yeah.
I myself and I know a lot about every year.
Yeah.
Every year to claim somebody. That's for certain.
Yeah. Well, you get on the roads. I mean, you know.
Well,
Before we finish up, your books. What books have you for sale?
Everything.
The one, not the last one, the one before, the other big one there behind you that you did with the maps of Lockdown.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah,
that's Islands. That's a serious piece of work. That one.
Yeah, that's a lovely book.
That's a lovely book. There's a beautiful full of maps and all in it, like of the lake.
Yeah, because the map. It is. And I've looked at those several times, you know. And
the best books I actually, for quality wise, it's one of the best books I have done. Up to that was done in 2016 or 17. All my earlier books, as you know, Tom, you couldn't. If you got colour on the cover, you'd be doing well, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's cost you an absolute fortune to get through it. But since 2012, 2013, last couple of books, I get a printing now in Czechoslovakia. I've no problem with it because it's in the EU. Czechoslovakia. But I'm printing them over there for half the cost I was getting them done for a year in full colour.
Yeah.
You know, like, which is great. Like the colour is different.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Particularly a book like that.
You know. That one, the Stalwart, that one.
Oh yes, it's
a day by day, 365 short stories in it every day of the year. Something about the mountain is in there.
Is that what you call it outside in the lake there? Is that Holy Island in the front of that? Is that Holy Island?
Oh, that's an island above in Loughraney. The only island in Loughraney.
Loughraney, yeah. There was a ballet group one time, the Loughraney boys.
Yeah, they're still there. Is he still there? Neil. Seamus, what's his name? He's a Neil.
There must be 110 over there. I forget though, it's a long time ago, you know. But, where are these books available? Has Pat O'Brien any of them inside?
I don't know, it's 2 years since the bookshop was open. He would have some, yeah. He definitely had some. There'd be local in bands in Scariff. And I sell most of myself in the harbour in Mount Shannon during the summer. I have my own trailer down there.
But how would they contact? Have you a website or email? If people
I put right up yesterday in the Saturday Independent. The 25, was it the 20? Just 1 second, let me get up.
Yeah.
Oh God. The 25 Holy Island is on number 14 on the the alternative Irish bucket list.
Oh.
And yes, there's Irish Independent. I don't know how. I didn't cost me anything to get at it anyway, to be honest. They give a little detail about it and my name and the whole lot, and my website is holyisland.ie.
Holyisland.ie.
Yeah, and I'm on Facebook then as well. Holy Island Tours on Facebook.
Yeah. It's just if people want to. And have you listed your books?
There's a shop. There's a shop on that side, holyisland.ie.
Oh yeah. No, it's just if people are looking in, like they might say, you know,
find out about a book.
They'll never buy one again.
You never know.
There's no sex in my books, so there's nothing about religion and stuff like that. Like, it's totally unsaleable stuff.
Not like Edna O'Brien or Reynolds.
Right, yes. She wrote a few good books now, and honest about it. But like her first books, there, like a pagan place. I'm not a pagan place, but the trilogy.
The
Green Girls.
Total trash. Total cheaply stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stop it. But it made her famous.
Yeah.
Very famous.
That's where we're missing out. There's no money in history. Yeah.
No money in history, I'm afraid.
No.
No, votes. Money or votes. No money or
No,
votes.
no.
But that's true.
Yeah.
Money forward would be go mad.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, we'll finish up. First of all, again, to tell people, we're on LiveMedia.tv. You'll find it on YouTube anywhere, or you'll find us on the Limerick Historical Society website. This programme will be up, we hope, by about 11:30 tonight, 11 o'clock, when it is edited and put back up on the internet, and you'll be able to see it and cut out anything that Ger Madden is saying. No. Anyway, first of all, anyway, Ger, to thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Do you like to say, are you from Scariff or are you from Mount Shannon?
I'm a Whitegate man.
Which?
Whitegate.
Oh, Whitegate.
That's right.
Very far
All
away.
my family from there. My brother, there was 12 boys and one girl in my family.
The baker's dozen.
But yeah, we're the 12 apostles, we like to think.
Yeah.
The sister is even called Mary.
How far is Whitegate from Scariff or from Mount Shannon?
There's about 3 miles of from Mount Shannon, yeah. 8 miles from Scariff, just to be honest. What's that, 10 kilometres?
Which is like in County Galway there, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously Galway, yeah. I crossed the border here. I married my wife is no Grady, just across the border in Maino.
Oh, yeah.
I married her and I got a site on part of the deal. I got a site on.
Anyway,
That was the dowry.
so thank you, Ger, for coming on anyway. And I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be talking again anyway.
Thanks, Ger.
Shannon, any fine day. I think they will let us operate in the woods.
If the weather gets fine, you need to find weather,
It'd be a safer place out than out in the lake anyway. But they let us, they tried to stop the dapping, but they didn't. They allowed it in for the few locals, but they wouldn't allow it for anybody travelling 3 kilometres. Like all the fishermen, Limerick, Galway, and these places, they were all stopped. Which is ridiculous. You couldn't be in a safer place, could you? 25 miles of lake like that.
But hope, just we'll have to wait there and see what happens to the weather anyway during the summer. It might be fine, we never know.
We'll get a great year after all this.
Okay, Ger, thanks very much anyway.
All the best, so bye-bye.
Night, Ger.
Talk again, okay?